Welcome back to another episode of Double.R.Podcast. It's your boy Rico and Rod.
Yo, what's going on, y'all?
Yes, sir. And today we have Coach K, our guest for today.
Yes, sir,
Former
yes,
wrestler.
sir.
You know, he's a strength and conditioning coach. How you feeling, man?
I feel tired.
What were you just doing before you came here?
I was doing a little bit of some pad work with one of my fighters, just trying to build a better base, transition from wrestling to like MMA.
Yeah.
And just understanding like how to really distribute weight, how to, hit certain angles, entry levels, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
So you were doing it yourself?
So I was doing it for a little bit, and then it wasn't really until I started getting more immersed into like this atmosphere with MMA and stuff, because like what happens usually most of the time is that like most wrestlers will either stick to what they know in terms of like going to the Olympics or going to the world team trials, and then on the back end you'll have some that want to pursue a career in fighting.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always wanted to compete to some degree with like MMA, just because it's a fascinating sport.
Yeah.
You're blending in different foundations and systems and things like that, and it's versatile. It's what makes you you know.
For real.
That's a savage sport.
It is.
Yeah. They say football is a savage sport. MMA, that's a savage.
That's a
That's a
one-on-one
blood
savage
sport.
sport.
Blood sport. Right
Yeah.
there.
But let's go to the beginning, man, to the beginning of your journey before you got into being a coach now. Let's start what attracted you to wanting to join the wrestling team in high school?
So growing up, I wasn't really much of like an athlete. Like I was able to do some things, but I never really applied myself. And so as I started to kind of like pave the way for myself, being introduced to like fitness, because I really started lifting weights before I started like doing anything. I was lifting at like 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And then I really started keeping it more consistent when I got into high school. So I think it was like the freshman orientations, like when we were like getting ready to go into school that weekend before. I was just walking around seeing like the different clubs, activities, things like that, and I came across the podium. I forgot who was there, but they're showing me like, oh, well, this is what it is, da 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 da. You got to wear this singlet, and I'm thinking to myself like, what the fuck am I gonna wear this singlet for? Like I'm like 138 something pounds. So going into my freshman year, I started doing all that stuff. I broke my collarbone, but then I wanted to stay and immerse myself. Same thing with like MMA. I wanted to really learn the sport.
Yeah.
And it kind of kept me out of like the back end of stuff that what happens in Broward. You know. And one thing led to another. Gained weight. Was wrestling consistently, and then got a few offers from a few schools and made my college career. I wrestled for 5 years, captain, did all that shit. So it's like I said, it's a different transition, and it's really made me appreciative of the journey rather than like, okay, well, every athlete's career is heartbreaking because it's going to be the last time that they do something, right?
Yeah.
But I saw it as a new book, a new chapter in my life, to where I can actually identify myself outside of being an athlete.
That's good.
That's pretty dope.
A lot of people get scared of that little singlet.
I'm not gonna lie, like when I had it on when I was I think you might have saw me when I was younger, like just I was a little beefy, but it wasn't like, it was like baby fat beef.
Yeah.
But like now getting into college, like you get more ripped and all that stuff. Like you look like a monster in it. But I don't know. It's like it's a feel thing. They recently started doing the two pieces, the shirt and the shorts.
Okay.
And it
They
kind
changed
of
that up.
it kind of changes it up. So it's like now, do you wonder if kids that are looking to take some type of self-defense or like competitive aspect and use something like that as to pay the way, and
Let me ask you this: what are some discipline and core values that you would say wrestling taught you and can teach a person?
It could teach you humility as well as being humble, because I've met a lot of state champs that were very pompous, and I've met on the back end a lot of people that weren't state champs that were arrogant in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So like there's like a cross section of both, but I think it just comes down to just building a set value of integrity, hard work, accountability, responsibility, right? Because even though that wrestling itself is a single sport, you're still cohesive in the sense of building a team, right? So you're going to have different roles and responsibilities, but the common denominator is that when you get into like a dual match, you're going to have to make the weight. And if you don't make the weight, there's going to be an issue. So after that point, you just start to learn through time and time again, like, hey, instead of me not making weight, I'm gonna make weight. Or if I'm 2 pounds over, I got to do whatever I need to do to make sure that I'm 2 pounds under.
Gotcha.
So like cutting weight, doing all that shit, the competitive drive, I'd say ultimately is the key value. Because like, not to like be biased toward it, but I feel that with wrestling and just combat itself, it builds a very sort of intrinsic lifestyle for you. Like you live, you adhere by it. Same thing with football, same thing with track. But I feel that it takes a certain amount of determination to, one, keep a person down and take them down repetitively over and over and over and over again. It's like you could be striking, you could be doing all these different situations, but I think the real test has to come down to keeping a person down and how long can you keep them down. Like I'd say like a big example with that was the Volkanovski and Islam fight. Yeah. So even though that Volkanovski was a prime athlete, he was a rugby player beforehand, like Islam on the back end, he was his whole tribe wrestling bears and shit, Yeah. So it's like he understands positioning. He understands how to leverage and use certain maneuvers to build upon and act on entry points. Yeah. So it's like, one of the arguments that I was hearing was like, oh, well, Volkanovski had more of this, had more of that. But it's like, okay, well, right now they were basing it purely off of ground control. Because, in UFC, what happens is that if you have a certain amount of ground percentage or just timing, period, they base that off of, one, how many takedowns you've gotten, how many attempts, things like that. And so what happens is that even though the guy that didn't put the most volume in the fight won, it turns into this point of like, okay, does volume matter or does the amount of damage that you put onto someone matter, Ooh, and I think it just really comes down to just a statistical and also like a visual standpoint. Like if I punch you so many times and like your face doesn't get red, but if I come across and I hit you, that's going to land a lot more harder than all my 5 jabs. Same thing with takedowns. Like if I'm taking you down repetitively and you're not doing anything to defend it, that's just points being racked up over and over and over again. True. So I just think, like I said, going back to my whole thing is, it just comes down to a level of determination.
That's good.
I had a question. So in terms of like, so wrestling, right? I was never really big into wrestling, so I kind of got some questions so I can understand it better. I know wrestling is an individual sport, but ultimately, is it a team sport? Because is there a point system that you have to get in order to beat the other team?
Yeah, so like you'll have like the basic pin, you'll have a decision, you'll have things like that, right? But it comes down to pins. How many people can get the most pins to keep the highest score? So like a pin is like 6 points, I believe, right? So if you got 12, 13 kids in a weight class, you rack up 6 points, speaks for itself. But now you're going to have to go through the loops and hurdles of taking someone down, keeping them down. And in college, it's different because what happens is that when you take someone down, the same concept with UFC, you got to have riding time. Now the same applied is being done in college. So I have to be able to keep someone down for a minute, 2 minutes, things like that in order to acquire an additional point toward the end of the period,
Oh, wow.
So it takes a lot of that, just a lot of, like I said, just being able to just understand how to manipulate and maneuver certain pieces of the body and just getting in certain positions, because it's very primitive, And I'd say with that, you just got to make sure you're taking them down. You got to make sure you're escaping. You got to, all these different maneuvers. So.
And is it like a tournament kind of setting?
Yeah. So like you'll either have a dual match, like a 1-on-1 type of thing, or you'll have like a 16-man or a 32-man bracket. So kind of like thinking like the comparison of track. So you got certain heats that you're going to be going in, right?
You.
And whoever wins that is the winner of that heat type of thing.
I got you. So what's just a segue, what's the I would say, like, the most fun tournament that you can remember? Either high school or college, it doesn't matter.
College, I remember going to the Wyoming Open. We had went twice that year. Mm-hmm. I went JUCO my first 2 years.
Okay.
And so the really big thrill for me was that not only was I in a Division I tournament, but I'm around all walks of, the college wrestling scene.
Yeah.
We got Division I, we got D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO, even club, right? And it's just seeing different levels of competition, but still anticipating it. Like, every match is a state finals match. And, like, it's a very demanding role, very demanding task. And just the thrill of it for me, like, yeah, you get scared when it's your first time doing something.
Yeah.
But then after you keep doing it for a period of time, it just becomes muscle memory.
Yeah.
So for me, at that point, my sophomore year, I was having fun. Like, I was winning some matches, I lost some matches, and it was really just about the process of what I took to get to that point, to get better from the year before and say, I got to improve on this. I got to do this. I got to do that. So I was constantly holding myself accountable for my actions from a performance standpoint.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was fun. Like, there were some where I did better than others. I threw some people. I might have slammed some people, things like that. But nonetheless, like, I think every experience is a really great experience.
Has there ever been a match for you where you looked at your opponent like, I need to get better. I need to step my game up?
It was actually in high school. My senior year, this guy from Plantation, like, I'll never forget this because, like, he actually paved the way for me to, like, open my eyes to, like, the mental toughness thing. Like, the first time that I wrestled him, we were at a dual tournament, and motherfucker dropped me on my head. I said, And so I get up, I'm thinking everything's fine. Then shortly thereafter, like, I started getting headaches and shit. So I was probably concussed. So I had like that sense of timidness, like, oh, well, I don't want to get dropped on my head, all this other shit. And so I went into the district tournament finals match later in the season, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, like, I'm gonna go after this guy. So we were going at it left and right, and so I had gotten a little ego trip, and I'm like, all right, bet. So I walked toward the center, and what they teach you in wrestling is that you got to stay low. So I'm literally walking toward the center, and then he picks me up, boom, again. And so I didn't land on my side. I did like a whiplash. So I had a stinger. So I couldn't hear nothing. I couldn't process shit. And so then I just remember my pops and my brother watching me and doing that stuff, and the AT's throwing fingers up, how many fingers am I holding up? 3, 4. And so I'm just like processing it. And then all I just remember is just something in me just switched. And so I just went after him. Like, I was probably concussed again at that point, you know? So it's like,
you were all in at that point.
I was all in at that point. Like, it takes a certain level of heart. And so, like, I was like, you know what? Fuck everything. I'm just going to leave it all out on the table. Like, I treated it as like this was like going to be my last match. And so about 10 seconds left in the match, he lost positioning in a certain movement, and I countered on it. And I had him on his back. 10 seconds. I'm holding out. I'm squeezing that shit for dear life. Everybody's going crazy in the stands. They're going insane. And so I ended up losing that match because, I guess his back wasn't on the mat enough, but
so
I got
politics.
Yeah.
No, my dog's mad. I'm mad. He won that shit, man. The crowd cheering. Everybody root for him.
That was a comeback. That was a comeback.
I feel like that was a comeback, bro.
That was a comeback.
Appreciate you taking us into that story, man.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
To add on to that story, I wrestled him again in the regional finals for 3rd place. I skunked him.
Yeah. Let me get one too, goddamn.
How we do it? Hey, appreciate you, but we gonna get you again.
Yeah. You ain't gonna get it this time around.
Shit. But for real, now transitioning. You mentioned that you went to JUCO. How's that transition for you? Going to JUCO, or what were the offers that were on the table for you?
I had about
high school.
I had about 5 offers. I had 2 from one NAIA school in Oklahoma. I had another one in Missouri. I had a D2 offer at the time from Cal Baptist, which is like in California. And I had the JUCO one lined up in Colorado, and I had another place in Tennessee, I believe.
Yeah.
And you went to Colorado.
Yeah, I went to Colorado.
So why'd you
Quick
choose
question.
that one?
Quick, actually.
He's like, no, let him.
You picked Colorado over California? Why? What was the reasoning?
Well,
Get you from both places, so it don't even matter.
nah, cause like I like to negotiate certain things.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, like I'm not in a position to negotiate based on my accolades. Like I was only a state qualifier and a few little shit here and there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really much to offer. But in the terms of me going out to California, you know, there would have been a negotiation process to where, okay, even though that I'm out of state, what is it going to take for me to get in-state tuition? Because I'm not going to be paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to go out here for a semester.
Yeah.
You know, to do that doesn't make sense to me. So at the time, I was like, you know what? Colorado seemed more financially sensible to me, and it was also a first-year program. So I kind of wanted to leave a legacy in that sequence. So I ended up taking my decision to go to Colorado. Yeah.
Nobody wrote no records here. I'm a record.
Yeah.
Leave a legacy.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think that answered both questions, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that did. So now you went to the JUCO. Was that humbling for you? Did you leave JUCO after to go to any other schools?
Yeah, I went to after I did my 2 years, I went to Colorado State. I ended up doing their wrestling team for a little bit, but then I had a falling out with the school and with the coach and everything, and like
The CSU.
yeah, CSU,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
and
right.
what had happened was like, you know, just the politics of going to a different school, and you got to go through all these tax forms and things like that. And so at the time I was living with some of my roommates who were actually Colorado residents, and apparently Colorado is one of the hardest states to get residency in.
Yeah.
Like you got to live there for a year, you got to have all these different things, you got to have a voter registration system, like
Damn.
it's like you got to show a lot of credibility. So I was there for a little bit, you know, my dorm and stuff didn't count, so I'm just like, you know what, forget it, you know. I came back down to Florida, and I think that transitional period made it very hard for me to accept loss. You know, because I'm going from being a college athlete to working a shit job in a restaurant industry.
Yeah.
And, you know, even though it's paying good money, like I'm learning customer service and things like that, I knew that at that point, it wasn't
For you.
for me. Yeah. And
I understand.
I was
Nobody
like,
wants to work in the restaurant industry.
and it's like, you know, like I'm not knocking the restaurant industry in that context, but it's just like for me and where I saw my life pursue, I needed to get away from that.
Yeah.
And it's like, as I started to, you know, put myself back into the realm of things, you know, going to taking these little classes and just learning things on my own, like that's when I really started to get into like coaching and stuff like that, because like I'd coach my friends for free, I'd do all that stuff, and like even though I didn't know what I knew at the time was working, I'd be like, you know what, I just want to give them an experience. So I think that would lead into like my next phase of like after I got into Kaiser to wrestle, I did that for like 2.5 years. Got my bachelor's, and then I got this internship at the job that I'm at the time. I knew someone that knew someone that knew someone.
Yeah.
And met my boss, did all that stuff, and honestly, like the transition from college wrestling to just being a coach completely, it's a completely different feeling.
Yeah.
You know, because you go from being an athlete to now you got to break things down for an athlete.
Yeah.
And some of them, they might learn fast, they might learn slow, but it's like the patience that you have to have with it. So with me, like I'm shadowing underneath a guy that has put everybody on the map, you know, in terms of USC, like Dustin Poirier, you got Kevin Lee, you got all these big time names that he's working with already. And I'm sitting here I'm in the process, I'm in the cut.
Yeah.
You know, I'm watching him do his stuff, and then I have to put myself in a position to now exercise the decision to do that. You know, so it took about 3 years now, like just getting used to the process and stuff like that. And, you know, it really shaped my understanding of like the whole meaning of it takes an athlete can be an athlete, but a coach is different from an athlete.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you can't just go out and do it all the time. You got to really think about both ends. And so like it takes a certain coach to be able to cue you with the right things so that way you can perform at your optimal.
Yeah.
You know.
So I know as an athlete, when it's all said and done, sometimes you have like hindsight. Right? Now you're a coach. Is there certain things you know now as a coach that you're like, dang, if I could have taught the younger me this, I would have been further in my career as an athlete, or maybe I would have made different moves as an athlete? You ever think like that?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody's gonna have regrets. You know,
Yeah.
I wish I could have did this, or I wish I could have did that. Like for me, I wish I could have played football because I knew that at that point in time, like I loved combat, but I also love contact sports. So I feel like between running, learning how to sprint, learning how to produce game speed and things like that, like I think I would have been really good at it.
Yeah.
But I can't sit and harp on it now because it took me to that point to just say, you know, I gotta put things in perspective.
Yeah.
Because if I had done that, who knows where I could have been in this avenue.
True.
You know.
True.
And even with coaching, like I like the fact that I'm learning because I can still be an athlete. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Like no one ever stops being an athlete.
That's very true.
And it's like it just depends on how much workload that you want to put onto yourself from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint to really like say like, you know, I'm gonna jump into, let's say, like an open meet, you know, or I want to do like a shooting range, things like that. Like everybody has an athletic ability to some regard. It's just a matter of how they express it. Yeah.
True. Now, how are some of the ways in college you started prepping yourself to transition to being a coach?
I didn't really prepare, honestly. It just happened. Like I was a leader, but I wasn't a leader that was in front of everybody. Like I feel like that when you get into like leadership roles, depending on who you are, you might be a leader from the side, you might be a leader in the middle, from the back, or from the front. Like I feel that I do best when I see everything through here, right? Like I like to think like a point guard in a sense, you know. So if I can see the whole floor and I know who's where and who's what, you know, now I can delegate roles and responsibilities to. You know, if this guy might be better at communicating one thing than I might be, I'm gonna delegate that role to him.
Yeah.
Or if he can produce a more physical output, then I'm gonna put all my force into him because now he knows he can take it. He can go through it from a physical standpoint. He can go from a mental standpoint, and just, you know, all different facets, right? And for me, I just feel like that as coaching and as time progresses, like you start to realize like coaching isn't just about coaching, it's about communicating. Right? If I don't know how to communicate with you, if I don't know how to convey something to you, it defeats the purpose of anything. You know, the same way you throw a football, the same way you learn how to run. If I can't teach you and cue you with certain things that'll make it make sense to you, it defeats the purpose of anything. Because you can take someone, I can tell you pick this up and put it down, but it takes a certain amount of, okay, I gotta have you do this, you know, pull the shoulder out and then pick it up with your hand. Like just little schematics that really break it down into perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Now,
speaking of, I'm gonna drink my drink.
For a collegiate athlete as a wrestler, right? What are after, you know, college level, where else can a wrestler take their talents to? Like, what can you transition into?
Like I said, like you can go into the UFC, you can go into just fighting. You can take it to jiu-jitsu. You can take it into the world, Olympics, right? But you'd have to qualify in the world to get to the Olympics, or even just have a chance. You know, all these different things, but I think it just kind of just depends on the wrestler and what they want to pursue in their career. You know, whether they want to be a fighter or whether they want to just stick with it, you know.
Okay. That's good. So, what are some of the craziest other than that one you gave us, but what is one of the craziest wrestling match you had?
Let's see. I think it might have been my junior year. I was wrestling at FAMU. There was like some little club tournament, and my last match of the day was for third, and I was wrestling this guy. Like this guy was like he was pretty, like I'm not gonna lie, he was sloppy.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what was going over me that day. Like I think I might have gotten sick or something, but I was not moving my best.
Yeah.
And so I would tussle, I would tie up, like I would counter off of certain movements. Like I'd take him, I'd literally just like gator roll him, get some back points here and there. And then like toward the second period, I'd gotten in on a shot and my pinky came out.
Ooh.
And this has already happened before, so I'm like, oh shit, like I just feel a cold sensation going down my side. And I'm like, you know, I'm sitting on this guy's leg and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And so I look at my hand, I'm like, so I let go just to like get out, retreat, and then I pop it back in place.
Ooh,
and I didn't think about it. I just had to go. So I ended up beating the guy by like 2 points and getting third, but that was a really crazy moment. Like just
where do you think your mindset come from, bro? For you to just, I might hesitate and be like, should I pull it?
How was it the first time you did it?
The first time I did it, I was a junior in high school. I was wrestling at one of the conference tournaments, and same thing happened. Like I went in for a shot, the guy his hip actually hit my pinky, and so when I was trying to shoot in at the time, his I forgot what his quad did, but it hit it and then it pushed it out.
Ooh, yeah.
And so like now, like this is me just having it naturally. This is how I have to force it back in.
Oh wow.
It's like, bro, like when
it's
tell
always
you,
been that pinky too.
yeah, like when I felt this shit happen the first time, I was like, same thing. I was like, what's going on with my foot? Oh shit! Like I had a different reaction, but then I was like, you know what? Like fuck it. Like end of the period, I popped it back in, and I had just like a crazy adrenaline rush. So I didn't feel it till like 45 minutes after, and that shit was just like my whole hand was just inflamed. It was bad.
Okay.
Wait. Caleb, are you sure you light skinned?
I think so. I think
like
so.
A dark skin. Those was Kobe movements right there.
Go ahead, Rob.
So all right. So the Jake Paul and Tommy Fury fight just happened. I had to ask you about it.
All right.
How do you feel about Jake Paul in terms of like, because a lot of people say he's not a real boxer, this, that, and the third. Me personally, I'll give you what I think about it. I mean, I think he is a real boxer. I don't think he's the greatest boxer ever. But I think.
Who said that?
I think he's a real boxer. I think he's a real boxer. He boxes.
Yeah. He's a real amateur boxer.
Yeah.
I mean,
how do you feel?
I mean, Jake Paul, from an entertainment standpoint, I'd say that he's really good at appealing to the mass.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And most people will argue that every single fight that he had was rigged. It just came down to performance. You know, you can say the same about the Tyron Woodley fight. Like, I don't think that it was rigged. I think that it was just a difference of styles. Like, Tyron Woodley is an MMA fighter. Yeah. And on top of that, he's not a boxer or a striker. He's a wrestler.
Yeah.
You know, so with that, it's like you take that and Anderson Silva and say, okay, you had a guy in his 40s now at this point keeping up with this kid. And this kid's, like I said, he's training like a boxer. It's not like he's training like an MMA fighter, because MMA striking is different than boxing.
Yeah.
So with certain angles and certain maneuvers that Jake has, like, you realistically think that, okay, as an MMA fighter, between the experience and all the fights that you have had, that you'd have a better sense of striking. But in reality, this kid only took 2.5 years, maybe 3 years to actually learn how to compete from that standpoint and say, you know what, I can go toe-to-toe with MMA fighters, which makes sense because they're not formidable strikers. Not saying that MMA fighters are not good strikers. It's just a different type of sport.
Yeah,
it's a
different style.
It's a different style,
fight.
you know.
So I know in MMA, like in MMA and boxing, if you were to transition, because I remember when Conor McGregor fought Floyd, they were like, he can't do a hammer fist, and there's certain actions.
You
with
saw
his
he
hand.
almost did it too.
Yeah.
He can't do it. Yeah.
I saw that. I mean, that's just funny.
But yeah, so I know from a certain extent, I'm not a fighter or anything like that, but I know to a certain extent there's certain movements that you can't do in MMA that you can do in boxing. And vice versa.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, with Jake Paul, he's been learning how to box. So the reason why that I feel that he was able to beat all of these guys is because it's a different sport. and it's a different style, right? Anderson Silva, like I said, he's a striker.
He almost got him too.
He almost got, but he's also older, and he is a striker, right? A striker is different from a boxer, right? And any boxer, any striker will tell you that otherwise, you know. So it's like it's a different type of movement, it's a different type of feel, and I feel that with Tommy and him, I didn't see the fight, but I would understand that from a perspective of actually being a professional boxer, on top of having a certain amount of fights. I believe Tommy Fury was going to win that. Yeah. Whether it went to decision or not. You know, congrats to Jake Paul for going the distance. That not only shows from athletes, you know, he went toe-to-toe with an actual professional boxer versus not going toe-to-toe with a professional boxer. Because I feel like that if he had not gone up against someone like his, it's like the caliber of Tommy, it's... oh, well, you know, Jake Paul is this, Jake Paul is that, you know, he's not a real boxer. Okay, now he's fighting a real boxer, and he just started his professional boxing career. Yeah. You know. But it's just, like I said, from an entertainment standpoint, he knows what he's doing. Yeah, no, you know?
He definitely knows how to pick his opponents. Oh, yeah. Because you said he's fighting wrestlers as a boxer, and also he's fought enough and he's won enough to make a certain amount of money because people paid to see him lose. Yeah. Right? So it's like...
the Drake curse.
Exactly.
Drake curse did get him today. But you know what's interesting, though? Now I'm thinking about it, and the way you just broke it down, it made me think a lot of the UFC fighters have to unlearn their movements to box. Jake Paul is coming from a aspect of he's just learning to box. He doesn't have to unlearn a lot of things. Yeah. Versus like your UFC fight, you have certain habits and like you said, how you move. And then when you transfer over to boxing, you're training for a couple of months of how to learn how to punch this way. No, do this way. Use the jab more. Yeah. Keep your distance. Move your feet more and stuff like that. So it's just different techniques that they gotta learn and also fight against themselves and unlearning how to.
Yeah. It's different biomechanics, really. Yeah. Because it's like I said, like. From your case, it's teaching a wide receiver how to sprint, but game speed is different than track speed.
Exactly.
You know, so you can get off the block faster than this wide receiver. Yeah. But this wide receiver has a particular game speed that you may not even be able to hit. You can. Exactly. You just have to learn how to break down and release and things like that.
Yep. No.
So you know,
you hit it right there.
It's like every sport has its own individuality, which makes it so specific. But in the general, more universal grand scheme of things is that it's about art. You know, how you move, how you express movement, people are able to express it in a more proficient manner than others, but at the end of the day you're still expressing movement to how it makes sense for you. You know,
now going back to the coaching, how important is it for a coach to be able to dissect what type of athlete they have in front of them and to teach them in a certain way they can comprehend what you're saying?
So it really just comes down to, like I said, communication, right? Because some athletes or some people in general, they might like the generic route of, you know, explain this to me in less than 30 seconds. Yeah. All right, so I gotta take your feet, I gotta make them do this, I gotta make your knees do that, yada yada yada, right? Some people prefer that. Now on the back end, if people that are curious about why they have to do a movement, okay, well, now we can break down the schematics of why this happens. You know, when I took you through training, you know, an example that I gave you was like, you want to be able to crush your lats when you're benching, right? Because what's going to happen is that you're stabilizing your back on the bench, and most of your stability comes from your lats. You know, same thing from the glutes, everything else. But you have to be able to break down this profound amount of information to simplify that to, let's say, a 5-year-old. You know, if I can't tell this 5-year-old how to walk, it kind of defeats the purpose. Now I got to deal with their attention span. Now I got to deal with this. Now I got to deal with that. So it really just comes down to, you know, who the athlete is, you know, the personality, the assessment process, and just understanding how they want to be cued. Because some people may not like that type of cueing. Some people may not like, oh, well, this is why you got to do it, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. You just got to tell them, okay, well, this is going to make your punch faster. This is going to make your kick stronger, you know?
Yeah, just to let you guys know, Kalen almost killed me that day. I had to drive back home.
I didn't. He swears I did.
He said, I was only
attempted murder.
Yeah, bro. I called around like, yo,
I need some meat.
I need to eat something, bro.
He said, you know what? I got this. I said, okay, bro.
Yeah, this man killed me, but nah, big up to you, bro. Like, that was a good workout. That was a really good workout. As far as, like, you know, coaching, what are some of the things that you love about coaching and some things that you don't like, if you do have that list?
I look at coaching as like a trial and error experiment, right? There's not really and I think this is the problem that we have in society, is that we like to think either right or wrong, right? And it's kind of like the black and white route, right? For me, like, I'm a very gray matter type of thinker, so not to say that something's right or not to say that something's wrong, but I want to be able to assess why, you know, what attributed to this behavior, what attributed to this type of limitation. So part of the assessment process that I take everybody through is not only just about getting to know them on a one-on-one standpoint, but biomechanically speaking, seeing how they move from just a baseline standpoint. You know, we're going to have certain movements that we're going to go into that are just natural and primitive, and we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
So for me, in my profession, I have to be able to make sure that I'm dissecting the reason why, you know, they can't stabilize one leg or they can't rotate their shoulder a proper way. Like, it can be a muscular thing, it can be a neurological thing, it can be so many different things. So I have to be able to identify that and break it down for them and say, okay, based on this is what we have in front of you. So now when we take this and we put this into your program, now it's saying that once everything starts to make sense and I'm going to take you through it, now it's like a puzzle. Like, it's like a science experiment to me.
Yeah.
And I like being able to prove a hypothesis, and I like being able to learn from the hypothesis and like what different methods and results that I can learn from it. So all it really is just like, it's fun for me. But on the back end is I would just say, like, getting too involved with different personalities, right? Because you're giving a certain amount of social energy on a given day, and I genuinely believe about return on time for myself and the energy that I provide to other people. So one thing that I'm learning now is that even though I'm going through this period of where I'm waking up at 4:30 and finishing my day at 8 o'clock, truly 4 to 8 hours of that day, I only have to be my most authentic self. And if I can't do that for people that want to train with me or want to be part of this experience, I do myself a disservice by not providing them that. So, you know, that's when we start resorting to the caffeine and all these other different things. But truly, I think that because that if you're not a good time manager, you're going to spread yourself thin just because, you know.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. So how important is it for someone that you train to have a good diet? And if so, do you give them a diet to work on?
Yeah, I mean, people make nutrition complicated because of, you know, there's different fad diets and different things like that. But it really just comes down to understanding what your body needs within that span, and also making sure that you're hitting consistent goals, right?
Yeah. Because,
like, let's say if someone wants to gain muscle, all right, they would say, well, how much protein do I need? Well, you're going to need 1.2 to 2.4 grams per body weight, inclusive to whatever else. But people don't really sit within the realm of, oh, well, you know, I just need to eat protein and that's that. You have to add every single thing. Now, don't add the things that are bad for you and then culminate that over time, because that's when you develop bad habits. So, you know, so the goal that I try to make with some of my members and my clients is that you have to look at it from a perspective of don't make rash habits, you know? And so what I mean by that is, like, okay, if someone loves to eat ice cream, not saying you don't eat ice cream anymore, because now that's influencing a negative reinforcement. So instead I say to them, okay, start tapering down the amount of ice cream that you eat in a day, and then let's see where your results are in 2 to 3 weeks. You know, they might lose 2 pounds, they might lose 5 pounds, they might not lose any pounds at all, but their difference in composition and body is changing, you know? Same thing with if I have a girl that wants to lose weight, how is she going to lose weight? You go into a caloric deficit. You know, you got to reduce anywhere from 500 to 1,500 calories within your diet to really see the effects. Now, you still need to have protein and shit. Yeah. You still need to have carbs. People say that carb is the bad energy source. That's literally your energy source for training. So if you don't have that.
Pause for 1 second.
I got you.
Color what? I heard the word. That shit went over my head.
What?
Say that word one more time.
Whoa,
you said the girl, she's like caloric. I don't even know what you just
caloric deficit.
Caloric deficit.
What is that?
So like you have caloric intake and you have caloric deficit. So when you get into like calories and things like that, when you look at the back of like let's say this, even though it doesn't really have much calories to begin with, there's usually a nutrition facts and manual. Yeah. So let's say, matter of fact,
you can take that bottle,
yeah.
I'm about to say that's just liquor.
So let's say with this, right? Granted, I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't like to say myself as one. But like, if we're just looking off of servings and things like that, you want to be able to base it off of how many calories, the type of fat, the type of carbs, the amount of sugars, protein, things like that, right? Yeah. So when it comes into fitting this into your daily diet, let's say you're hitting only a certain amount of like 3,000 calories. You know, you're going to need a certain amount of protein. You're going to need a certain amount of carbs. You're going to need a certain amount of fat. That's just a general outline. Yeah. But when you start specifying down like, okay, well, what type of food should I eat? What type of this, right? It's best to go off of the general guideline so that way you have an understanding as well as understanding the amount of physical activity that you put yourself through, right?
Okay.
You know, not saying you need to go all the way up into the sky and then overboard yourself, like, no. But you want to be able to have certain intensities and certain measurements that'll indicate, all right, I have progress being made. Yeah. You know?
And you said carbs actually give you energy in the gym.
Yeah.
It's good for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, you know, people will tell you stay away from carbs. Well, there's some body styles, like for people that if they take too much carbs.
Oh, the mesomorph, endomorph, that type of thing. Yeah.
You throwing out these words, and I'm just
We're
learning.
Yeah.
We learning.
It's a lot of different stuff.
Like, I gotta compliment you on your IQ as far as like what you're saying. I'm like,
I don't know
what regular coaches be saying. Yeah. Like, what did you do to get that up? You know, like.
I mean, I went to college. I've been constantly putting myself in an environment to where I'm growing. You know, I'm reading on current literature, things like that, and I have to stay up to date because God forbid I get someone that, you know, understands the process, and they ask me a question about, let's just say, like weight cutting. You know, how am I going to take a person through weight cutting if I've never learned how to cut weight or if I've never done it? You know, so I have to be able to stay up to date with them and understand that, hey, these are the steps and parameters that you need to do the proper way because I've already done it the wrong way. You know, if I don't put myself through the experience, how am I going to tell somebody how the experience should be? You know.
That makes a lot of sense. Boy, you know something. Boy.
I guess so. I guess I know some shit.
You know something.
I guess I know some shit.
Oh shoot, that's good. That's good. So as far as the gym that you're at, what's your gym called?
Darustrong Performance. DARUSTRONG.
Did he tell you how he got that name? Any story behind it? Darustrong.
I'm sure there's a story behind it. I have asked him, but based on what he's told me is that just, you know, darustrong itself is a brand, you know, and the service that we render, not only just as coaches, but just as people, it's attributing to a lifestyle that promotes longevity, you know, optimizing performance, things like that. And it's just a sense of value, you know. There's a difference between going to like a LA Fitness or like a UFit and saying, you know, oh, I'm just going to get strong, I'm just going to do this. Like, no, like for us, since I'm representing this brand, it's adhering to a lifestyle to say, you know, despite the adversity, despite the obstacles that you're going to be facing, we're going to put you in all facets to say you're going to be strong physically, you're going to be strong mentally, you're going to be strong psychologically, and this is going to be the best experience that we provide to you as coaches. Because really all that it is for us is, if we cannot attribute to your experience, then we did something wrong. You know, and despite it being a customer service based business, at the end of the day, I have to be able to tell you what's wrong with your body, and you have a right to know what's wrong with your body and how we can take the steps to take you to that point, you know, or if you might have issues with someone that's in your life or things like that, not just being a coach, but also being a therapist, being a psychologist, things like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I have to really hold in on experiences and things like that, because I can't be short-minded and say, you know what, you know, forget this person. You know, I want to have this person pay me a certain amount of money, but I don't want to take the steps to lead to it. The steps that I have to do is I have to give away free knowledge. I have to give away an incentive, because it really just comes down to building credibility and value with that customer clientele type base.
Yeah, you gotta wear many hats.
You know, jack of all trades.
Yeah.
No bullshit.
No, for real. Now, tell us some of the lovely things that I saw at your gym that you guys provide, bro. That ice machine. I need to go in.
So we have a doctor on site. He specializes in what's called naturopathic medicine, and that focuses more on like musculoskeletal, joint connective tissue. So kind of in the similar realm of a chiropractor, but he's, like I said, specializes more in like just muscular things, you know. And the way he breaks it down is, he'll stick you to death, but at the same time, like, you're gonna feel like a whole completely different person after. We also have a recovery center where we have micronutrients, things like that, testing. Recovery center, IV. I'm sorry. What is it? We have the cold plunge. We have the infrared sauna. We have IV. And just a lot of different things that would attribute to just being a one-stop shop, you know.
That's awesome. And y'all got a podcast room that I saw.
Yeah, we got a podcast room too. So we got everything.
So where is the gym located?
So we're in Hillsborough. So if you get off 95, the address is 426 West Hillsborough. So we're located right in the East Hillsborough Garden Plaza.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's dope. And you guys have a page name for your page, right?
Yeah, it's DSP_gym. Or if you want to follow more educational content, it is darustrong_edu.
Okay. The links for that will be in the description below.
Yes, sir.
No problem.
Sir. Now, last question, unless Ron has some more to ask you. Can someone who loves working out and been thinking about getting to coaching start that process or step without going to the schooling? Or is there a way they could get some of the AAAs or some of the licensing without going to like a traditional route?
Yeah, you can go into getting certifications. You can get your NASM, you can get your ISSA, which are like other certifications that you can get to start like being qualified to train people. But if you're going into more of like the strength and conditioning route that I'm in, you want to get your bachelor's, you want to be able to be a member through the NSCA and get your CSCS or RSCC or things like that. Like there's so many different, there's so many different certifications that you can go off of. And really, I would say that based on the time of me being there's a difference between being a trainer and being a coach, and I feel that with me being a coach and me actively providing fundamental knowledge, not to say that a trainer doesn't know how to do that, but I personally do it at a more optimal level, and it's being able to understand just all facets of who you are as a person.
That's dope. Now, what are some of the best athletes you've been training right now?
I've been training Josh McCardo. He's one of the professional MMA fighters that I have right now.
Second time we're hearing him.
Second time you're hearing him
on here, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Him, I want to say Alex Rogers. He's one of the top amateur prospects right now in South Florida, and he's currently making his way to become a professional. We've had like UFC fighters and bare knuckle fighters. Like I've trained alongside my boss with Kevin Lee. That was a really great experience.
Yeah.
Dustin Poirier, Hector Lombard, Chase Sherman, really big time names that are in that industry. And it's provided me with a perspective of like, this is something that I love doing. And this is something that I want to keep learning from.
Yeah.
Even if like, even if I'm just learning how they move or how certain programs can be rendered, things like that, it really puts me in a position to kind of grow from that standpoint,
People don't know how much fighters we actually got in our backyard.
It's a lot. Like there's a lot of celebrities. There's a lot of fighters down here. It's athletes.
It's a lot of talent.
Yeah, bro.
A lot of talent in South Florida.
Is it the gyms? Is it the coaches? I don't know what it is, but we attract.
It's
fighters.
the water.
I guess so.
It's the water. It's that
Something's in
Florida
the
water.
water.
Something's in the water. Maybe it's just South Florida.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Yo, now where do you see yourself going as far as coaching?
Where?
Like, how high do you see yourself going? Like, do you see yourself ending up in somebody's corner? Do you see yourself traveling with a specific fighter for their camp? Or you see yourself opening your own gym?
I see myself, if we're just going to talk in quantity of years, in the next 5 years, I see myself being more well-developed and more, more receptive to the process of taking on more responsibilities. And what I mean by that is basically understanding that, yeah, I'm training fighters and doing all that stuff right now. I'm training some high-level fighters, but at the end of the day, I want to provide the best knowledge and fundamentals possible to any person, any walk of life. So that way I am taking myself on a road to not where I'm just like kind of niching myself off. Like I don't believe in niching, and I can attest from the story that about wrestling. Like I knew that wrestling for itself and what it was, that was just a window of time. Can I still go back to that? Absolutely. But I want to be able to go with another skill set or another perspective in mind before I make any action. You know, same thing. If I want to be an MMA fighter, I have to learn how to throw hands. I have to learn how to grapple at a more optimal level. Not to say that I can't grapple, you know, but it's taking different blends and making it into one. I have to be able to make lemonade type of thing.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you about that too. Is that something that you could see yourself doing, or is that something that you want to do? Jump into MMA?
Honestly, yeah. It's like I would love to just jump in a match. You know, obviously I'd have to learn and put myself through the process, but I think I could do a little bit of some fun, but I have to make sure that I don't.
This man called it fun.
It is fun.
He's like,
It is fun. Oh, yeah.
I don't know why, but I be looking at some of the fights. I'm like, damn, bro, watch out.
Watch out.
That's just like freaking
nerve wracking. Last Conor fight,
anime
I was
or an
nervous
action
for
movie to
Conor.
me, bro.
I don't know why I was so nervous for him.
Oh, because he hasn't been doing much.
Yeah,
I mean,
but he's coming back this year. That's what they say.
But sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. No, I'd say, yeah, it's definitely something that I want to do. I just don't know when the right time would be. And I don't think that there's ever going to be a right time.
You just gotta jump in the water.
I'm just going to jump in the water and see if I can float or swim.
Yeah.
Type of thing, you know?
Damn.
Yeah, for sure.
So where can they find you, Coach K, if somebody sees you on our live and our YouTube and they were like, yeah, well, I want to train with him, where can they find you?
So you guys can find me on Instagram, coach.k_. You can find me on TikTok, coach.k_. I'm also a Popple ambassador, so in the case where you might want to transition away from the traditional cards, instead of getting like a business card digitalized, I'm
got that cool digital card.
I got that one too, right?
I
think I got it right now.
Hey, I'm scared. All right, they pull up everything, y'all.
Pull up everything, you know.
Everything from Cave.
But no, like things like that, like just scanning it, getting the barcode, all that
if you put it in
stuff.
front of the camera, could they like screenshot it and then? No.
You got it the wrong way, Coach.
No, I know.
Oh,
yeah. Scared him.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah,
that's
bro.
dope.
That's pretty dope. Quick question before we cut off. They've done it, guys.
What? Who?
Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis. It's official now.
Ooh.
I don't know if you guys seen it, but it's official.
Yeah,
now.
it is official.
It is official.
Who you got?
Tank.
Tank?
Why?
What do you mean, why?
I just want to know
You
why.
know why.
I mean,
I know
like,
why, but I want to know your why.
I mean, like, granted, like, I'm not a boxer. I'm not a boxing coach. But what I do understand is, you know, Gervonta, one, he's a tank, you know, and part of what his tactic is that, I mean, some boxers, right, they'll usually feel each other out the first round, 2 rounds, and then they'll start kind of tinkering with, you know, their skills. And so even though that you could say that Ryan has a height advantage, I'd say that from a strength perspective and just from a more detail, because I truly believe Gervonta has had a lot more fights with high level guys than Ryan has. So
I agree.
Even with that, like, he has a little bit more experience being in this realm than Ryan. Now, not to discredit Ryan by saying, you know, he's not a great fighter. You know, I would just say that from a size perspective, from a power perspective, it's going to be a difficult fight. You know, I see it honestly going to decision.
Yeah.
That's crazy if it does, because Tank doesn't go to decision. He goes to knockouts.
He does go to knockouts.
He goes to knockouts. So it'll be, I think it'll be definitely be a great fight.
Ryan Garcia's a tough cookie.
Yeah, he is tough.
He's a tough
What I'm
cookie.
excited, I want to see if Ryan can get Tank on the ground and see how he bounces back.
That is true.
So, he is quick. He got
he got a mean
that
left
right
hook.
hook.
He got a mean hook.
That shit. That's a sleeper. It's deadly. It's definitely deadly. So it'll definitely be an entertaining fight.
That'll be tough. Yeah. But man, we appreciate you coming on, bro.
Of course, bro.
We'll definitely have you on again, and we just can't wait to see where you take it as a coach. And we hope you the best of luck, bro.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hope you guys the best of luck too.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, bro.